Hey, what's going on, AP peeps? We have chapter 41 of the American Pageant for you today. This is essentially going to be the end of the AP curriculum. The chances of you seeing anything really on this chapter are kind of slim to none, but especially after this chapter, chances are you will not see anything. But before we get started, I'm dedicating this recording today to Mr. Hawking's 2014 AP class. So thank you guys so very much for watching. And I'm supposed to mention eyebrows too. So thank you all who watch and support all the videos that I make. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. So let's get going with chapter 41. America confronts the post-Cold War era, or CLOD, either one works. All right, so let's talk about Bill Clinton, the first baby boomer president. So this is the generation that is born after World War II. Clinton was a new Democrat. We need to figure out what exactly what is a new Democrat. A Democrat who exhibits a movement towards the center politically. So Bill Clinton was not really this liberal Democrat that many people associated with the Democratic Party. He became tougher on crime. He was pro-defense and also in favor of some welfare reform. That really appeals to a lot of independents and even some people who would traditionally vote for Republicans. In the election of 1992, we see George H.W. Bush, the incumbent, versus Bill Clinton, and also we have an independent by the name of Ross Perot. Ross Perot actually gets the most amount of votes for a third-party candidate since Teddy Roosevelt ran in 1912. The slogan for the Clinton campaign was, "It's the economy, stupid," because the economy was going in a downturn. Even though George Bush was just coming off this Iraq war, he had very high popularity. That quickly went away due to the economy. And this bad economy really hurt Bush's reelection bid and pretty much guaranteed that Clinton would become the next president. And again, Perot received nearly 20 million votes, which is a very, very high number for a third-party candidate. Clinton won, and in addition to that, the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And here's an electoral map, and you can see that Clinton really took a lot of states. So let's talk about his appointments. He appointed this woman, Janet Reno, as the first female attorney general in United States history. And he also appointed Ruth Bader Ginsburg as the second female on the Supreme Court. Okay, we have a false start for reform. Lots of depressing stuff on this slide. Clinton advocated the ban on homosexuals in the military. He had to settle on a policy that was known as don't ask, don't tell, in which people in the military would not be asked of their sexual preference as long as they did not tell anybody about it. And this was repealed in 2010 by President Barack Obama. You can see him signing this in 2010. The Brady Bill was passed under Clinton's watch, which is a gun control law named after one of Ronald Reagan's aides that was shot and paralyzed as the result of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan in the early 1980s. On April 19th, 1995, today is April 19th, 2014, so 19 years ago today, there was the Oklahoma City bombing on a federal building in Oklahoma City. And this was led by Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, two Americans who were upset with the federal government for their role in an earlier incident in Waco, Texas. 168 people were killed, including many children. There was actually a daycare on one of the floors. I think it might have been the first floor of the building, and many children, babies and children, were killed as a result of this terrorist attack. On April 20th of 1999, I was a junior in high school. I vividly remember this day. This is the Columbine High School shooting. 2 kids went into Columbine High School and killed over a dozen people and injured countless more. And this really helped bring attention to weapons, particularly automatic weapons. This has really been in the news ever since. This whole idea of what does the Second Amendment mean? Do you have a right to any type of weapon, or is it a limited or only certain types of weapons? That's even going on today. All right, Newt Gingrich, he became Speaker of the House in 1994. And who were some other famous speakers of the House? I'm trying to think. Oh my God, it's Henry Clay. Yes. So there we have the youngest Speaker of the House in United States history. Good old Henry Clay when he became Speaker in 1812. So anyway, Newt Gingrich and the Republicans, they issued what's known as a contract with America. And this was a promise to reduce federal deficits and also reduce the amount of money spent on welfare programs. In the 1994 midterm elections, all Republicans in Congress were reelected, whether it's the Senate or the House, and many governor candidates were elected as well, and they even gained more seats in Congress. So the Republicans really get an advantage in the 1994 midterm elections. One thing they challenged was this idea of unfunded mandates. And this is something you'll learn a lot about in AP Gov next year, is this idea that the federal government will mandate something or require something of the states, but they won't give them money to help pay for it. One of the biggest things that Republicans wanted to change was welfare reform, and we see massive cuts for benefits for individuals on welfare. And we also see benefit cuts for immigrants as well. Now, although Clinton alienated some in his party, he gained a lot of support for moving towards the middle. Again, this is that idea of the new Democrat, that he's willing to risk losing the support of those really liberal left-winging individuals of the Democratic Party in the hopes of gaining more people in the middle. In the election of 1996, we have Bill Clinton versus Robert Dole. We also have Ross Perot again. He does not have nearly the showing that he had in 1992, and Clinton wins in a pretty big landslide here, as you can see according to the electoral map. It's 379 to 159. All right, so let's talk about Clinton's second term. Setbacks for affirmative action occurred during his administration. In California, we have Proposition 209, which was approved, and it prohibited affirmative action in government and higher education. Clinton did not approve of the setbacks, but he did not do anything to try to challenge them. Economic issues during his presidency, it is one of the best times in the United States history for the economy. Many .com businesses boomed during this time. This is when the internet became very popular. You would see people become millionaires or even billionaires overnight. Mark Cuban got all his money from a .com business that he opened up. The stock market increased drastically. That is called a bull market when it keeps going up. In the 90s, saw a huge increase in the stock market. And really, the economy of the 1990s was unprecedented. It was fantastic for virtually all groups of people. In 1993, Bill Clinton signed the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement. Definitely know this. If there's anything for Clinton's presidency that could be on the test in multiple choice form, my guess is it is NAFTA. And this eliminated tariffs between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. So anything made in Mexico could now be shipped to the United States tariff-free. And many have argued that this helped promote outsourcing or taking American jobs out of America and having them go overseas. The World Trade Organization comes to fruition under Clinton's administration, and this helped promote free trade throughout the world. So getting rid of these tariffs, they encourage trade between countries. And in 1999, there was a World Trade Organization meeting, and there were lots of protests by individuals, particularly young individuals, and the protests turned pretty violent. You can see here the police are pepper spraying individuals who were protesting. Some scandals with Clinton, there's quite a few, but the first one is that during his presidency, there were allegations that individuals donated money in exchange for staying overnight at the White House. This is an improper use of money, and people would donate money and supposedly spend the night in the Lincoln bedroom. In Somalia in October of 1993, so when Clinton is just about 10 months into office, if you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, it refers to this event in which 18 Americans were killed on a special mission in Somalia, and it's really terrible. The helicopter shot down. 18 special forces were killed and their bodies were dragged through the street. Improved relations with China happened under Clinton's watch, and this is because China's a very large market. He realizes, and America realizes, just how many people the United States could trade with. And in May of 2000, China became a major trading partner of the United States, and even so, and still are to this day. In Serbia, there was a leader named Slobodan Milosevic who was committing a genocide through a policy that he called ethnic cleansing, and the U.S. and NATO led a bombing campaign to oust Milosevic, and he was eventually caught and put on trial. In 1993, Clinton hoped to improve some relations with the Middle East, and we see here Yitzhak Rabin on the left, the leader of Israel, and Yasser Arafat on the right, the leader of the PLO, and they hoped to promote self-rule for the Palestinians. And shortly after this, Rabin would actually be assassinated. So a lot of the gains that they agreed upon here, actually went away. All right, so let's talk about scandal impeachment. Can't talk about Bill Clinton without talking about impeachment. And a lot of this goes back to this woman here, Monica Lewinsky. She was a White House intern that had an affair with Clinton. Now, Clinton initially denied any wrongdoing under oath. Later, he admitted that he had an inappropriate relationship with this woman. Now, Kenneth Starr, this guy here, he was a special prosecutor that investigated Clinton, and he provided 11 possible charges of impeachment to the House of Representatives. They eventually settled on charging Clinton with 2 different charges, obstruction of justice and perjury, which is lying under oath. So the House does recommend impeachment. They vote for impeachment, and the House vote was partisan, meaning that basically all Republicans voted against Clinton and all Democrats voted to not impeach him. It goes to the Senate, where you need a 2/3 majority to convict the president or to remove the president, and that does not happen. And again, it's voted mostly down party lines. There are a few Republicans who voted against it, but for the most part, it was if you're a Republican, you voted for removing him, and if you were a Democrat, you voted against removing him. So what exactly is Clinton's legacy? Well, without question, there were many budget surpluses during Clinton's last years. Again, the economy is doing so well. And this brings up debates between Republicans and Democrats over how to use those surpluses. Republicans wanted to promote tax cuts, giving the money back to the people, whereas Democrats wanted to focus on issues like Medicare and Social Security. These will be two major issues of the election of 2000. The 1990s saw a decrease in unemployment, poverty, and a rise in income for virtually all groups. So let's flash forward to 2000. Bush and Gore are running against each other. Gore was Clinton's vice president. He chose this guy, Joseph Lieberman, the first Jewish person on a national ticket. Al Gore wanted to use budget surpluses on the debt, Social Security, and Medicare. Bush, this two-time governor of Texas, campaigned on restoring dignity to the White House, which was a shot at Clinton and his immoral behavior, as Bush felt, and he selects Dick Cheney as his running mate, who was Secretary of Defense under his father. He wanted to use the budget surpluses on tax cuts, again, giving that money back to individuals in America. Ralph Nader, here's a very young Ralph Nader. He runs on a third-party campaign, and he makes his name from being a consumer advocate. He wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed, which demonstrated the dangers of certain GM cars. So you have essentially a two-way race with this guy, Ralph Nader. He's going to siphon off some votes from the environmentalists as well. And people will argue that if it worked for him, maybe Al Gore would have won Florida, which we'll talk about right now. So issues in Florida. Well, the vote was so close that there was an automatic recount that went into effect. Ballots and voting machines may have caused confusion. There's something called a hanging shadow. When people look at the ticket that the voting machine would use, a little hole would be punched out. Imagine like a little hole puncher. And the hole that would be punched out was sometimes in between the Democratic and Republican persons. It was hard to tell who exactly that ticket was voting for. So we have a court case, Bush versus Gore. I don't know why Bush is capitalized, but Bush versus Gore goes all the way to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court stopped the further recounts and declared Bush the winner in Florida. So the Supreme Court settles the election of 2000. First time ever that the Supreme Court settled a presidential election. Now, Bush won the electoral majority without winning the popular majority. He gets Florida, which allows him to get the most electoral votes, but Al Gore actually has more popular votes. So this is the second time this has happened in U.S. history. The first was 1876 with Hayes versus Tilden. So definitely know at the election of 2000, you have somebody winning the presidency without winning a popular majority. So what are some government changes under Bush? He cuts back federally funded stem cell research, which many people believe would help. Using stem cell research would help find a cure for diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And he did not enforce the Kyoto Treaty, which was an agreement among many countries to limit environmental pollution. On September 11th, 2001, we have the terrorist attacks on 9/11. In New York City, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. 4 separate planes were hijacked. 2 were crashed into the Twin Towers in New York City. 1 was crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and another one was crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after the people on board the plane overtook it. Over 3,000 individuals died on that morning. And the group that was responsible for this was Al-Qaeda. This was led by Osama bin Laden, and he was an Islamic fundamentalist. He had one of his issues towards the United States was that he resented Western presence in the Middle East, especially after the first Iraq War. So the fact that the United States was in what bin Laden felt was a sacred territory of Saudi Arabia and did not leave, he was upset with the United States. The United States, in response to 9/11, passes what's known as the Patriot Act, and this increases the power of the federal government. Remember, whether it's a civil war, whether it's World War I, whether it's World War II, or after 9/11, when there are times of crisis, rights for individuals go down. This allows the government more phone and email surveillance than they previously had. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, which the United States was given in the Platt Amendment that they agreed upon with Cuba back in 1901, I believe it is. Suspected terrorists have been held in Guantanamo Bay since 2001, 2002, so many of them for 12 to 13 years, and they have not had trials. And that has led to a lot of controversy as to whether or not that is fair for these individuals. So let's go to the Iraq War, the second Iraq War. Well, let's go back to Saddam Hussein in 1998. He kicked out UN weapons inspectors, and this was a requirement as a result of the first Gulf War that he had to allow United Nations weapons inspectors in there. President Bush declares that Iraq, Iran, and North Korea are what's considered this axis of evil, and they pose a grave danger to American security. So on March 19th, 2003, the United States invades Iraq. So why did the United States invade Iraq? Well, at the time, Bush argued that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and that they were developing nuclear weapons, and that they also had ties to terrorism, specifically Al-Qaeda. Well, what do we know today? Looking back, no weapons of mass destruction have been found, and there's no connection to Al-Qaeda either. During the actual invasion itself, 139 Americans died, but many, many more, thousands more have died during the occupation. So most of the casualties came after the initial combat was over. So let's go back to the United States. Domestically, we have some corporate problems in the early 2000s. Two very large companies, Enron and WorldCom, it was discovered that there was fraud there and they go bankrupt. Enron in particular, I think at one time was the 7th largest company in the entire country. In California, we have Governor Gray Davis is recalled, and he is replaced with this guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor. And what state made recall popular during the Progressive Era? Do you remember? Think about it for a moment. Put me on pause and think about it. Did you say Wisconsin and Robert La Follette? I hope you did, and if you did, you were absolutely correct. Robert La Follette, remember, you have the recall, initiative, and referendum. Those are the 3 progressive reforms. So No Child Left Behind is passed in 2002 and is provided for federal standards in schools. Bush also advocated an amendment banning gay marriage while he was president. And in 2004, we have John Kerry versus Bush. Bush is the incumbent president, and he beats John Kerry, this Vietnam veteran who is running for the Democratic Party. He is currently Obama's Secretary of State. Kerry came across as a flip-flopper. He said he voted for something, and then he said he voted against it. And it really came out kind of awkward, and many people were accusing him of not staying put on one issue. And I actually remember watching the Republican convention in 2004, and the whole auditorium was just cheering flip-flopper. And Bush won 286 to 252, and he gains a lot of support from the Bible Belt, or the South, that is very religious. All right, that's everything you guys need to know about Chapter 41. Thank you very much for watching. If you have not already, please take a moment and subscribe to my channel. If you know of anybody that would benefit from this video, please share it with them. I know the AP test is coming up soon. I want to reach as many people as possible. I really appreciate you guys watching this, and best of luck to you. May the exam will be here before you know it. Just study a little bit every day, and you will do great. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thank you again, and have a good day, guys.